everybody. I would like to call the June 22nd meeting of the Environmental Commission to order at 7:06. Matt, will you please call roll?
I will. Commissioner Graham. Commissioner Skinner.
Here.
Commissioner Needham. Commissioner Morocco. Here. Councilperson Smith.
Present.
Councilperson Frenzel.
Here.
Commissioner Mursky.
Here.
Commissioner Hanna.
Here.
Commissioner Apple.
Here.
Commissioner Rigo.
Present.
Commissioner Gibb-Randall.
Here.
Commissioner Hutton.
Here.
Commissioner Slavic. You have a quorum.
Excellent. We have a draft of tonight's agenda. Agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to it? Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Commissioner Skinner, is there a second? Commissioner Smith, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. We also have a draft of the May 25th minutes. Are there any corrections or questions about the meeting minutes?
Yeah, just Legistar automatically puts in the vacant position, but we don't have a vacant position. So
Okay.
just know that that's just a function of our newest commissioner had not made the system yet.
Got it.
So
Okay.
we still only have 13, and we will fix that in the final version.
Okay, great. Any other additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve the May minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Commissioner Mursky, is there a second? Commissioner Frenzel, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the May minutes stand approved as distributed. Would anyone here this evening like to offer public comment? We're singling you out. You can say no. Okay. All right, thanks. So I'm going to move on to unfinished business. And we, this afternoon, got an update about the solid waste and the recycling programs. And Matt, I wondered if I could ask you to walk us through this.
Sure. There were several questions that the Commission and Commissioner Hutton have asked of city staff, and Crescent Slaughton, the Systems Planning Manager, prepared this. One of the questions was there's been a recent hit to the solid waste fund balance for these retirement benefits. And the question is there a different way to account for those, or to spread it out so there's not such a large hit? And our current understanding is that there's a one-time hit, and there appears to be no flexibility in that. So that's the current status. Let's see, we are contracting with a new firm, Advanced Disposal Services, that will be both the landfill, the place where the garbage will go, and the operator of the transfer station, and shipping it between the transfer station and the landfill, which is a different one. It's a landfill actually in Washtenaw County. And as you probably know, as of July 1, Recycling Ann Arbor will be the new operator at the material recovery facility, managing our recycling and shipping that. Let's see, there's move in, move out.
What's the duration of that contract?
I think it's one.
Which one?
The
RAA.
RAA, Recycling Ann Arbor. I think it's 1 year.
With potential for 2 6-month extensions.
Okay.
Because I think the plan is to have another RFP out for longer services once the decision on the MRF.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the period, I'm sorry.
Sorry, 1 year with 2 6-month extensions possible.
Thank you.
I'm not going to get in the weeds. There's new Scalehouse software. I guess when Recommunity left, their software went with them, so now there's new software. Working with CB&I, the city's developing a new RFP for the multi-year contract for the Compost Center. So the current operator, WeCare, their contract runs out at the end of the year, and so they're developing a new contract for that work. In July, at your next meeting, will kind of be all solid waste. So there will be a presentation on the county's draft solid waste management plan, and also information on the MRF, because there's a a product, a document that was developed by CBNI on the MRF. That has been delivered to staff, but staff haven't reviewed it and made it final. So as soon as that is complete, that will be made available to the commission. I believe also the presentation next month will be on the work that the county and the city have done on the drop-off station and what the options are there. I think that was done by Resource Recycling Systems. The last line says, in light of initiation of discussions with county staff regarding a regional approach to the MRF, as well as other current needs in the solid waste area, staff is currently reevaluating the role and approach for this position. This resource could be used to support the regional approach. So that's the update on the solid waste staffing.
Thank you. There was one other question that probably did not get answered because I probably didn't phrase it didn't phrase it correctly, but I was also wondering if we could get an update on the RFP that's going out for the solid waste plan revision itself.
Yes.
That's in here.
It is?
Is that what's on the second page? Yeah.
It's the second paragraph under RFPs. It
Yeah.
says that they're doing the compost center operations RFP first, and then they're going to develop the scope of work for this solid waste plan RFP.
Okay, all right, thank you. I didn't read that carefully. Okay, great.
May I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Do we see value in, and does the city see value in sharing the RFP with the Environmental Commission before the RFP is issued?
I believe that's the plan.
That's the intent?
We have definitely expressed interest in seeing it, and I
Great.
believe they've expressed willingness to cooperate.
My understanding as well.
Yeah, I think the only issue there is we just need to make sure there's not conflicts, that we're not previewing the RFP with anyone who might be a bidder.
Good point.
So I think that's the only cautionary thing, and if anyone here has any fiduciary relationship, they would recuse themselves.
Sure, yep. All right. Any other questions about this?
I do have one last question, if
Yeah.
I may. The solid waste FTE, that's the position that was in last year's budget, that's still unfilled.
Correct.
Do we have any update on when it might be filled, or is that now contingent on potentially a change in focus of the position based on what I read here?
That's my understanding.
I can't add anything more than what is written here.
Could we clarify that, maybe?
Sure.
I'm not sure that there is an answer.
Yeah.
We've asked.
Yeah, I think that they are just waiting to see what it turns out the needs are after they look at the solid waste plan and see what makes the most sense for the direction the city's going. Anyone else? Okay. I would like to raise an idea for the commission to take up. It's listed under new business, and it's concerning water, to address water rates and equity. As I'm sure you guys know, the city doesn't own the utility companies that provide our power or gas, but we do own the water utility. And on July 1st, Philadelphia is going to become the first city in the country that has a water rate based on income. It's a program that has been championed by a member of the Philadelphia City Council, and it was inspired by the UN's assertion that water is a human right. I'm not sure what Ann Arbor's policy is regarding overdue water bills, but I know many cities shut off water to houses that have unpaid bills. The majority of these people who live in those houses are, of course, low income, so cutting off water creates a cycle of debt and domestic disruption that seems particularly difficult for people who are suffering that. And I think that we as a community have affirmed our commitment to improving the lack of affordable housing in Ann Arbor, and I know that we have advocated for energy efficiency as a way to support, not solve, but improve low-income residents' ability to live in Ann Arbor because energy is regressive. And if we can reduce this expense, it has a much bigger impact on low-income residents than wealthier ones, and water is the same. So I'd like to propose that we might look into the possibility of creating such a program, and I wanted to open this up for discussion.
I support the idea.
I think it sounds like a great idea. I mean, I think.
Could you describe how you would balance water use as well? I mean, it seems like that would be part of the formula. Can you just expound a little further on how that relationship might show up in your water bill?
That is a good question, and I actually don't know how they figured that out. Part of what I would be interested in looking into is reaching out to them and seeing how they structured that. Because I'm sure, like there are with energy inefficiencies, there are very likely water inefficiencies too, and so that seems like it certainly could be part of the program. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Piggybacking on that, if I understood correctly, could we look at, since we may be tweaking rates, would we potentially combine making the water rate not only contingent on income but also use, so that we would drive water savings? This, I think, is what you're getting at, right? And look at that together and not do one and then come back and have to do the other, but look at them jointly and look at not only Philadelphia, but maybe look at Western states that have looked at the kinds of things that relate to reducing water usage based on higher rates for high usage.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Couple thoughts. I generally think it's a great idea. There's significant evidence in assisting low-income populations that making them jump through additional hoops, that added burden is inappropriate in a series of ways, because there's a series of reasons why they're having troubles paying their bills in the first place. So I think if we made that incentive program mandatory, or if it were more of a stick than a carrot, I'd want to make sure that there was an assistance program alongside that of some sort. The carrot scenario is probably better in this situation than a stick, would be my my recommendation. And our water bill, does our water bill already have a place to pay extra money to donate to people who are in need? One of our utility bills does.
I don't know. I came on online.
Not online.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see it there. Maybe the printed bill is different.
I still get the printed bill. Whoops.
Oops. So maybe there is.
On that note, I was wondering if anyone knows if there is currently any sort of outreach to low-income households about water use, similar to like a DTE energy efficiency program where they give out CFLs or LEDs if water, like aerators or shower heads.
There's information on the city's website about, and there's like water audit kits you can get to test whether your toilets are leaking and things like that. What I don't know, and would be interesting as part of this, is to get a sense for active outreach we're doing, as opposed to just, okay, if you find it on the website, we're happy to help, or so. And can I share that the work that's going to be going on? So the timing on this is good, because unbeknownst to me, I, as a resident, was invited to be on the city's Water and Sewer Cost of Service Public Advisory Committee. And Commissioner Hutton is also going to be on that.
And Mike. Great.
What they talk about is Ann Arbor's drinking water and sanitary sewer infrastructure is essential in an effort to find a balance between the infrastructure needs of the city and the values of the community as expressed in the rates and charges paid by users. Talks about want feedback on the way we implement community values around topics such as conservation, affordability, and sustainable infrastructure. So the timing seems perfect for this. And for those of you that don't know, we use an inclining block rate structure. So the first 700 cubic feet of water is, relatively speaking, cheap. It's $1 something. And as soon as you go to 8 and start using 8 through 28, it's like $3, and as soon as you go to 29, it's $5. And so I think one of the questions is, it's great if a family of 4 gets up and that's all they need is 7 CCF, but because it's billed quarterly, that's actually not a lot of water. I mean, one person uses 10 cubic feet of water, 100 cubic feet of water in a quarter would be average. So you're really only subsidizing one person in that quarter, as opposed to whatever a larger size family would be. So these are some of the questions, but it's worked very effectively for water conservation. Our peak days have not been over, I think, 28 million gallons a day, and it used to be closer to 35. So it's sent the right economic message, but I don't think the question of how well is it hurting or not lower income folks in the community, I don't think we know that answer.
To the question earlier about water use measures, the DTE residential energy efficiency audit includes aerators and shower heads and things like that, but the program is relatively limited in terms of reach, and that's for people who get their own bill. And if you're in an apartment and you don't have your own bill, or if you, or you're, let's say you're multi-people in a student housing or something like that, or if you're in a low-income kind of situation, you may not be qualified for that program. I'm not sure they have another program for renters and landlords, but I don't know if that includes aerators and shower heads and the like. But that might be something that we also maybe communicate what is out there at the same time we communicate any changes in rates and things like that.
Commissioner Smith?
I would certainly add that this is something we discussed earlier in the spring at the council table.
Okay.
Councilmember Grand brought this idea forward, and we tried to wrestle with it as we looked at adopting this year's water and sewer rates, and you know, there just wasn't enough research there for us to be able to do anything with it.
Okay.
So I would think that if this body can put together some guidance, it will be incredibly useful for those on council to as we set rates next year.
Perfect. Yeah.
There is still an active water assistance fund through the billing process.
Good to know.
I will. I'll get a report about that and find out more.
Is there any other discussion?
What would be next steps?
Well, for me, I feel like I'm committed to doing things that I've already said that I want to get done this summer. So my timeline would be that this committee would not get to work until the fall. I just wanted to put it out there as a placeholder, you know, as we all start to make our other commitments, that if this is something that you are interested in working in, I anticipate that we might start work on it September at the earliest, probably more likely October.
Okay.
Okay. So,
just
yes.
a note, I'm digging into this email from the cost of service update, and those meetings go from August until December, with probably some follow-up after that.
okay.
So I would also think that it's appropriate that you know, we could communicate some of those values to the people that are actually on this, in the hopes of streamlining these efforts and not coming up with yet another subcommittee to to
Yes.
do something when
Yes,
it could
yes.
be fed into this process and
Exactly.
be able to make some meaningful change and effort.
Yep. No, that's great. That sounds great.
And it's likely we can use our staff to do some of the background research
Okay.
before the fall, so you're ready to go.
Great. All right. Okay, well, I'm going to flag this for myself to return to it maybe in August, and then we can make plans for starting to work in the fall. Okay, moving right along. I can speak to the report about the metrics committee, which is we still haven't met, but 7:30 tomorrow morning at Zingerman's next door, we are meeting. So next time we will be able to actually give a report. Pollinators Committee, I know that Commissioner Slavic is not here. She has sent out 2 rounds of notes, and I believe that that this committee is continuing to meet. She said that she will be here at the next Environmental Commission meeting, and that she could give a more thorough update to all of us then. Is there a report from the Zero Waste Committee?
Do you want to start it, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead.
The committee's met 3 times, sort of, now. Chats about what we could push on internally as part of the organization. And I met with the administrator about that, and he was very excited about any number of different zero waste or waste reduction initiatives that the city might take on. He believes that a number of them can be done administratively, so which makes things quicker, which is great. So I think a procurement policy will probably be the first thing that's rolled out during the beginning of the summer, sometime in the next handful of weeks, perhaps. And then moving on to some zero waste within facilities, and then a larger scale plan. So it's a sort of stepwise fashion. The committee has also been talking about how we already have a bunch of nonprofits and other organizations in town and in the community, U of M and the county, that are already doing other things that could support our residents in zero waste efforts that the city is not currently poised to support them on. Mm-hmm. And so those discussions about how those service providers, those nonprofits and the like, might be able to work on those externally from the city also, which is, I think, a great direction also. And those are the big ones.
Yeah, I think our main points of discussion have been the environmental purchasing policy, which we've heard is being worked on internally, zero waste events, and recently the Taste of Ann Arbor was a massive success, and it was a zero waste event. They had the estimate that I heard was about 20,000 people, an incredible turnout. Mm-hmm. And very, very positive response from attendees about the zero waste and disposal options. We have also talked about public space recycling, especially in the DDA area, or lack of recycling options and instructions as to what can go in the bins, what's actually being recycled, because there are like metal bins downtown that have recycling on top that just feeds into the trash on the bottom. So we've talked a bit about that and trying to get a better understanding of like where the bins are. So we've been working with the committee members to kind of figure that out. We've also talked about recycling and composting options at parks, and potentially wanting to reach out to the parks department and commission to discuss how we can improve recycling and composting options at the city parks, especially in the busy summer season. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Has there been any collaboration with the university or consideration of trying to work together with them, considering we have 45,000 students, plus I'm sure spouses and children and everything else? I know that last fall they intended to do a sort and analysis of waste at U of M Stadium, and that would be a strong signal. I don't know if it was actually conducted. I know it was postponed, but I don't know if it was conducted. But it seems to me if we could make sure that we're aligned, unlike what we do with glass and things like that, that would be really, really great, so that we're doing the same kinds of things.
Yeah, we have a staff person from U of M, Anya Dale, on the committee. She is with the Office of Campus Sustainability. We definitely want to be aligned as much as we can, and I think at this point it's more what lessons can we learn from what the university has done already, because they are much further along and they have plans and they have lots of facilities that have composting throughout the facility. They have the environmental purchasing policy, they have compostable dishware, they have options available for their events to make them zero waste. I'm not sure if all of their events are. I can't remember that off the top of my head. But there's definitely an effort to align I'm not sure that we've discussed actual collaboration on anything, though.
Something to think about.
Just a quick comment on Taste of Ann Arbor. I think they had volunteers at the composting sorting areas, and that was really helpful. I think that probably led to more success. I know other cities do a very good job of labeling exactly what can go in each bin, and I think that's really helpful. You know, we've been in DC, and the museums will have all the, you know, and it's helpful, even though we compost, to know what the city can take. So I think looking into that would be interesting. And then you mentioned recycling and compost options at the parks. It would be nice to have more where people congregate. You know, it's interesting, you know, what gets thrown in the trash if a recycling bin is not nearby, so that would be great.
Yeah, and on the Taste of Ann Arbor thing, they not only did they have volunteers at each of the stations, those volunteers actually weighed every single bag of trash to determine the diversion rate for the event.
Nice.
Every single bag. So kudos to them. They had a long and hard day. So the folks at Recycle Ann Arbor, I think, did a wonderful job.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Apple, do you have a question? No?
I have a quick question. I'm
Yes.
coming into this new, so I don't know what else you all have done with this, but is there any kind of program for restaurants to compost in Ann Arbor, or no?
Not
Am I
yet.
opening up a huge can of worms that I
There's-
just missed? Okay, if we can talk about this later. It's on the second meeting, that's totally
We're
fine.
working on it.
Okay.
You bring the whiskey, we could talk.
But I think it would be, like, I like to compost when I go to restaurants. It's very complicated, and it involves usually me having to take things home. But if we could, at a minimum, have compost bins that you could walk out of the downtown restaurants and use, that would be maybe a first step.
Yeah, there are a lot of complications
Yeah.
with that, but there are plenty of restaurants downtown that are interested. Space is a big issue, among many other issues.
All right, thank you very much, both of you. Natural features, I believe Commissioner Graham is the only person here who's serving on that right now, so.
I know
I
they
sit
didn't.
up-
Oh, you do, sorry.
But I haven't been to a meeting, so.
Well, and they also, I don't think have met recently.
That's correct.
Chris tends to be very busy in the summer, and so often there's a little bit of a few meetings get skipped. So I'm not sure how much new there is.
Okay, great. Is there a HRIMP update?
I just wanted to share, there is a HRIMP update. There's a presentation that members of this commission and city staff have put together, because the question was, we have this plan, where are we on it, and are there things that this board and or PAC could be making recommendations to council on? So I was supposed to give a presentation to PAC earlier this week, and there was a mix-up on staff, and I ended up not being on the agenda. So we're working on making that happen again. I think one of the main goals there is a lot of the members of PAC weren't around when the first plan was developed, so just first getting them up to speed. And then also specifically looking for interest on this idea of a river stewardship committee. There was a recommendation in the plan that environmental commissioners, PAC reps would get together on some, reasonable frequency to make sure that the recreational uses and environmental issues associated with the river were integrated, and at least nothing was getting dropped. So I think that's kind of the most immediate next step.
Great. Any questions? And is that presentation coming before us at any point?
Happy to bring it. We can do that in July, or at the minimum, I can share it with everyone electronically, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
July may be busy.
Yeah. Let's see how the rest of the meeting goes and what else ends up on our agenda,
Okay.
but we'll talk about that. Commissioner Apple, could you please give us an update from PAC?
PAC, there are over 200 people employed at parks between the pools and the canoe liveries.
Huh.
It's a little factoid that I thought I would share with people. So in terms of an economic generator and employing people in the community, I was very impressed to learn that. Let's see, other news relevant to environment and certainly people's commuting. The Gallup Park bike path will be closed at some point over the course of the summer for about 2 weeks for resurfacing. This is the portion that was done last year, but the asphalt failed the MDOT tests.
Oh.
So through no fault of anything that the city has done, that path will be completely redone and hopefully give us many years of great service, as opposed to needing to be replaced in another 2 or 3. So yeah, that's, but yeah, I just want to stress that this was through no fault of the cities at all, and actually through their diligence that this was caught and fixed. So yeah, that's all I've got from PAC.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there an update from planning?
Other than that, we had a working session with the Energy Commission on the new solar ordinance.
Huh.
So the wordsmithing is still happening, but they were able to get feedback from the 2 organizations, and we had a very robust discussion for 2 hours about it, and I feel like made some excellent headway. So I think stay tuned.
Okay,
That's coming forth.
great.
You know, seems like it's well on its way, I would say.
Do you have anything to add to that?
So we had a working session for an hour before we met with planning, and because it was relatively brief, the main thing that we discussed was community solar. So we have a subcommittee that's being formed to work on that, and we're going to pursue a number of options. We see that as really a key opportunity because of the disincentive of solar property taxes on individual solar installations. So offering a variety of different community solar options, everything through houses of worship, and for example, what Emily's working on, to local options on local buildings, to out-of-state options. That's our goal, is to put something together and provide that in a way to residents that they can look and pick what is optimal for their situation. Some people may be interested in portability, some people may not, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to be working on.
All right. Are there other updates from the Energy Commission?
No, that was neat.
Okay, great. Could you please give us an update from staff, Matt?
Sure, I'll hit on a few key points. The Gelbin site, there's those in the public and members here. There's a CARD group, the Coalition for Action on Remediation of Dioxin. They meet monthly, but with the city, the county, the Watershed Council, Scioto Township intervening in the court case, that is ongoing, and I can't talk about it. So I can't tell you anything that's happening there.
Nice.
A group was in Muskegon last week, 2 weeks ago, I think, for the Michigan Green Communities Annual Meeting. This is a network of cities, townships, and counties that Dave Norwood and I helped start many moons ago, and Jamie Kidwell helped start it. It still continues. It's currently funded by the Mott Foundation, and it's a way for these smaller local governments to start reporting on energy, water use, stormwater, just kind of like tiny mini star. And they award based on whether you report and then improvement. So Ann Arbor received the gold award, and so we have that, and at some point Michigan Municipal League will come and present that to City Council, but I wanted to share that. Thank Emily for all of her work in collecting and submitting that data. DTE reached out to us. We're going to have a conversation with their EV charging staff, so that's, I'm not sure exactly what the agenda is, but it's good that the utility is reaching out, and I think promising given their 80 by 50 announcement. Both the idling ordinance goes into effect July 1, and the word is getting out. We've met with most of the downtown associations, or at least communicated by email, looking for areas they think signage might be appropriate. We're hearing mostly that where the complaints are in alleys, where there are residents right above, and you get a kind of canyon effect. So for right now, there will be no formal, signage in commercial loading zones, things like that. We're looking at this as kind of a soft launch and more educational. A lot of information has gone up on the a2gov.org/idle-free website with some documents that restaurants can print out, hand to their Cisco drivers, things like that, making them aware of the ordinance. And I know the word is getting out because today I got an email from a delivery driver very upset that we wrote this law in a way that he could not do his business and provide safe food to people. And I don't think he'd read the ordinance because there's clearly an exemption for if your vehicle is doing work, which means if you need to run the vehicle to keep the cooling system on, that's a clear exemption in the ordinance. Similarly, the local utility called, curious about their work and their need to keep lights on. And similarly, again, if the vehicle is doing work, that's an exemption in the ordinance. So any questions you get from the public, feel free to send them my way. Both were, I think, apparently reassured after that conversation, but I think they just hear you can't idle for 5 minutes and don't understand there are a clear set of exemptions. The other thing is it's that time of the year where coal tar sealants are going to be applied. We have, for members of the public, we have banned the use of high pH coal tar and any other high pH sealants. And there's a lot of good information on the Huron River Watershed Council's website, in addition to our own website, about alternatives that are available. So I think unless I've missed anything, I will be out next week at strategic planning meetings with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, so be gone Monday through Thursday. And if you have any questions about other things going on at the city, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a council update? No, really?
We pass on Monday.
Yeah, Monday, we passed 2 resolutions of interest to this body. One was the Green Fleets Directive, directing the city administrator to develop a new green streets policy by the end of the year. And the other was reaffirming the city's commitment to adhere to the standards of the Paris Climate Accords. Both passed unanimously with very little critical discussion about them. So I was pleased about that.
Green streets or green fleets?
Oh, sorry, green fleets.
Okay. That's what
We already have green streets.
Let me just add one thing. The mayor was one of the first 60 mayors to sign on to this mayor's letter. And as other bodies have gone on, we're up to 305 mayors have signed on in support of Paris, representing, I think, over 60 million population. So quite a robust organization and support.
I have a question about that. Since Paris is voluntary and non-binding, what does it mean for the city to sign on?
In our resolution, let me think if I can remember the exact words of the resolution. I think we are trying to meet the threshold of reducing our carbon emissions by 70% during the time frame. Adhering to that, the same thing that the C40 group has pledged to do, which means, actually doing some of our climate action plan. And, there was a discussion in the resolution saying we will continue to look within and without for additional funding to prioritize for this. So
The resolution is on Legistar, we could look there.
I can make sure that gets out to you.
Yeah, that would
And I
be,
think-
I think, of interest. I mean, I think that's one of the problems, frankly, with the Paris Accord, as we all know, And, that was one of the big discussions about Trump getting out of the accord, because it really didn't force the U.S. to do anything anyhow, frankly. And so I was wondering if there's anything that the mayors are doing that's somehow different than what nations have done.
Well, I think with our resolution, the commitment that we're gonna work towards that, and, I think people, certainly over the last year and a half, there's been great concern that we have not made sufficient progress on any of our climate action goals. I think this, particularly with the language saying we will continue to look without and within at our own funds to prioritize money for this, is a signal that, we have hard decisions to make about money, but this is a pretty significant thing. And if we're not going to adhere to the resolution that we passed the other night, then I would like those who don't want to allocate funding to introduce competing resolution to rescind that.
Can I just add one more thing? I think part of this, cities have made a variety of commitments to climate change, and we have our climate plan, and that's been adopted by council.
Right.
Lots of other resolutions. I think, especially on the part of the mayors of the big cities that work in this more international space, this was a message to our international community that the federal government pulling out does not mean the United States and that all this work that's going on in cities will continue to happen, and if anything, may double down on some of this work. So part of this is political and sending the right message, and just showing unity among these subnational forms of government. That what I can tell you is there's currently exploration of whether or not subnational levels of government could join the Paris Agreement. Currently, I don't think that's possible because it's all done through the UN, and that's all nation-based. So.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
Of course, yes.
Since we're getting towards the end of June, we had discussed and I think had passed a resolution in the Environmental Commission, supported also in the Energy Commission, about getting word from the city by, I can't remember the date, in August, on sustainable funding for climate action. Do we have any update on that? I know the last time you and I talked, there wasn't an update.
I got an update this afternoon.
Great.
Crescent is willing to meet with us, and he is the point person. So anybody who's interested in having that conversation or working toward that, let me know, and I will work to set up a meeting with all of us. He also got back to me about the memo, the budget memo that we had sent, and somewhere in the bureaucracy, he hadn't seen it before, so now he has it, and he will respond to it.
Great.
Yep. I also wanted to take a quick poll. I know that there are 2 commissioners who will not be here in July, and because we have presentations scheduled, if there are not very many of us, it would be helpful to know now so we can try to reschedule it. This next meeting is July 27th.
So Wayne will substitute for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you don't know now, that's okay, but if we could just get a count, like maybe by the end of this week or early next week, just so we can give some notice if we need to reschedule.
You might as well ask about August 24th, too.
Yeah, August 24th. So the history of this commission is we either usually don't have enough people to meet in July, or we don't have enough people to meet in August. So.
I'll be here.
Okay, good.
I'll be here too.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Okay.
I don't know
Excellent.
about August, but I think I'll be here
What's
for
the
July.
date in August?
24th.
Yeah.
I can make that.
Might miss the July meeting.
Okay.
I'll be here for everything. I love you guys.
That's what matters.
Okay. Are there any items for the next agenda? Okay, if any come up, of course, reach out to me or Matt, and we will make sure that we include them. Our next scheduled meeting, as I just said, is July 27th at 7 p.m. And we'll ask you one more time, do you have anything you'd like to say to us? Any public comment?
No, I don't have any commentary, but these committees all seem new to me, and like, just out of curiosity, what exactly are like the goals of the Zero Waste Committee, and the other committees that we talked about.
Can I ask you to come to the microphone? The meetings are being taped, and if you speak in the microphone, then people who are watching can hear. Thanks.
Just out of curiosity, I wanted to know what are like long-term goals of the different committees that we had, like the Natural Features Committee and the Zero Waste Committee.
I can speak to natural features. City put together a natural features plan in 2002, I believe. It's one of the oldest plans that hasn't been updated. So usually the city tries to look at these plans every 6 years, 8 years, to be able to set their policy about, and this one's about natural areas, everything from forests to wetlands, to street trees, to certain quality of life issues, to greenways. It's pretty expansive, and it's part of the reason why that particular committee has been meeting for a very long time, to try and see what the policy recommendations would be moving forward.
Okay. And Zero Waste Committee, I know we talked about that too.
Sure. So the Zero Waste Committee meets to discuss ways that the city can improve diversion rates, because Ann Arbor has historically been a leader in the solid waste recycling compost area. There are a lot of people who would like to see us push a little harder to get back to that leadership position, because we've fallen behind the past 10 years or so. So this group just meets to discuss ways that we can get back there.
Okay.
And can I just jump in? So by diversion rates, we mean not sending things to the landfill. And solid waste is what we mean by garbage. And compost is food or yard waste.
Yeah.
And so keeping that out of the landfill is what the goal is.
Thanks.
All right.
Inside
Thank you.
baseball.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the
Thank you very
introduction.
much.
I know.
If there's no further business to come before the commission, I will adjourn us at 7:53 PM. This might be a record, you guys.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you very much.